Good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It is September 1st, 2021, and we have a lot to talk about out there today, including newly formed Tropical Storm Larry and what we think will happen with that, and also this very significant flood and severe weather risk associated with the leftovers of Ida, still causing problems for our friends in the northeast part of the United States. So let's get on with it, shall we? First, stopping at the National Hurricane Center homepage, have 4 players on the field today, including Invest Area, 91L down in the Southwest Caribbean. 30% chance of development. We'll have to watch this and see if it ever tries to become something more than what the guidance is indicating. This is the leftovers of Ida, a tropical depression, and it's up here, the center of it anyway, located in eastern Kentucky, West Virginia area, but as I will show you in a moment on the radar, it's got a huge area of precip, and that's going to bring some very heavy rain, the threat of flooding, and even severe weather for our friends up in the northeast later today. Then we have Kate, tropical depression, still barely hanging on out here in the open Atlantic, and then newly formed Tropical Storm Larry out here in this so-called main development region. We haven't had a long track, really intense hurricane in a while, probably a couple years or more, and so this far south anyway, and I think Larry is going to sort of break that mold and become a big ACE producer. Real quick, what is that? ACE is accumulated cyclone energy, and it's kind of like looking at the quality of the season. If you have a whole bunch of named storms and they're short-lived and they don't produce a very high ACE score, it's kind of like a hyped-up basketball player that never really scores a lot of points. You know, they might have a big name and they're really hyped up all the time, but if they're not a big producer, don't score a lot of points and other stats, then, they're just a lot of hype. And that's the kind of thing when we see with what we have with Julian and Kate, very weak, short-lived, low ACE producers, so they are not that significant in the overall pattern of the season, but something like Larry, this long track that's going to come up with it, it's going to be out over the Atlantic for a while, is going to add to those ACE points, and that's a good way to measure how the season adds up from the accumulated cyclone energy that is output from the wind. It's just a scientific thing that we look at, and it kind of gives you a gauge of the quality of the season. So these are the areas that we're watching, and this is the big, the trouble spot for today. This is from the National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center, that a significant and life-threatening flooding is forecast across the mid-Atlantic into southern New England today ahead of Tropical Depression Ida. So these things don't stop at the coast. I keep emphasizing this. I mean, a high risk of flooding up here. If this was a severe weather high risk out on the Great Plains, there would be thousands of chasers heading out there. You know, if this was a Category 4 hurricane, right? Like we just had, heading for a coastal area. I mean, this is as high as it gets there, that high risk. That's it. That's the top of the scale, or the bottom of the scale, whatever way you want to look at it. But this is a really significant issue that's going to be developing over a big population area across major interstate corridors, and in this region, an area where Henri has put down what we call an antecedent amount of moisture that will be preceding what comes up here from Ida. So this is very, very serious. And you look at these rain forecasts and you say, well, that's not too much, 3 inches of rain. I mean, really? 5 inches, we get that down here in Florida in an afternoon thunderstorm. Well, in this area, the ground is already saturated, and that much rain over a short amount of time is going to cause some significant issues. And this whole region now under flood watch. There are flood warnings in there, these different little patches. You can go to weather.gov. Let me just show you this real quick. You go to weather.gov, and you can click on any region that you're interested in. Maybe you have a relative that lives up here in the vicinity of Scranton, Pennsylvania. So you can click on here, and you say, well, what's going on up there? Well, we got flash flood warnings, these different patchworks in here. You just click on these, and they tell you exactly where they are for, what they are, the areas that are going to be impacted, and these are all written by and monitored by people at the local National Weather Service in your, we'll do that later, thank you, in your region. All right, so this is very important. And then, as far as the recovery efforts down here, I don't want to ignore this. Heat advisories down in the deep south. Why? Well, it's the leftover humidity from Ida, and oh man, it's oppressive. And all the recovery effort and just the big heat dome sitting over us, this is a big problem for people that are recovering, dealing with the aftermath of Ida. Lots of people still with no AC. So, you know, and I'm getting ready to go back in from Houston here over into the area that Ida affected to pick up our equipment today. So we got to take lots of water ourselves. And then real quick, don't want to ignore this flood threat in the desert southwest. Why? The leftovers of Nora that came up out of the Pacific here, remnant moisture coming in from that. So very active. And then yes, you're not seeing things that's related to winter weather. No thank you, I'm not ready for that. All right, let's move along and talk about the severe weather aspect. Slight to moderate risk of severe weather. I'm telling you people, listen to me, the threat of tornadoes up in this region, especially in that moderate risk, parts of Maryland, extreme southeast Pennsylvania, and a good chunk of eastern New Jersey, southeast New Jersey, the threat of tornadoes from these rain bands is substantial. It's substantial enough that it's 10%. And if you saw a 10% area in the Great Plains, again, there would be lots and lots of chasers out there. It is a 10% or greater probability of an EF2 through EF5 tornado within 25 miles of a point. Actually, when that's a hatched area. It's just any tornado within 25 miles of a point. When it's hatched, it's a stronger tornado threat. So take this very seriously. Make sure your weather radio, your phone gets those alerts. Don't have those disabled. And keep your eye on the radar, all right? You can use publicly available radar on the web, like this from Mark Nissenbaum, and it shows the overall rain shield up here. You can use radar scope, but you really need to be paying attention to this. That's a lot of rain heading up into that region, and it's going to have some severe weather potential as well, especially where you get heating down here where the rain hasn't started yet. So, you know, this is going to be a big news story, unfortunately, and we'll check in tomorrow and see how things panned out. All right, so looking at the satellite imagery of the basin right now, again, you can just barely see over here some of that moisture streaming in from the eastern Pacific from the leftovers of Nora. And then here's all the moisture from Ida, the center of circulation located here. This is the leftovers, the remnants, the depression, whatever, of Kate. And then here is Larry. And as I said yesterday, and it certainly came to fruition in the discussion this morning, that the longer this takes to develop, the more west it will get. And the GFS has been kind of out to lunch with this one. The Euro has had a better handle on it. It's funny how they waffle back and forth. That's a whole discussion for another time about why the modeling can't just be consistent all the time. I wish it was. But Larry's getting better organized. It's going to go on to become a hurricane. That part of the Atlantic is very favorable right now. It doesn't need a favorable MJO sitting over it or whatever. It's just the conditions, what do we call it? It is conditionally favorable. The background state, everything's there. There's no El Nino this year to create a strong jet streak across the region of westerly winds. It's all systems go for Larry to, like I said earlier, to be a big ace producer. So do we have to worry about this over in the United States or the islands? Probably not. And this is part of the reason why you've got Kate out here kind of punching a hole in the subtropical ridge just a little bit. And so we don't have this deep connected ridge all the way across the Atlantic that's just going to drive Larry all the way across towards Florida or whatever. This is not the setup that we saw for Irma or Maria back in 2017, or I think farther back in time or further back, 2008 with Ike, where you just had substantial deep layer ridging all across the Atlantic. That's not happening right now. There's a little bit of a break in the subtropical ridge right about here, and this is just an oversimplification of it. And so Larry is going to work its way around that and eventually head out into the open Atlantic, more than likely. That's not a guarantee, but that is the likely scenario at this point. And we'll explain why on the modeling in just a second. So this is all of that energy associated with the remnants of Ida, believe it or not, the vorticity signature of it. That's a lot of energy moving into this area that's going to really have some problems up there. I'm dreading what's about to happen. I really am. This is very, very serious. I cannot emphasize that enough. Email your friends up there. Share this video with them. Make sure they are aware the leftovers of Ida, a really, really substantial threat for that area. There's the tiny, tiny area of vorticity associated with Kate, and that's 91L down there. We'll have to watch that, see if it can pivot its way up and maybe come up towards the Yucatan. Put a big question mark in here as to what's going to happen. Not a lot of, that one could be sneaky, put it that way. We'll definitely watch it. I mean, come on, it's September. You have to. And there is Larry out south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and we'll see what happens. Here's the track map of our features off the HurricaneTrack Insider site. And I'm going to tell you real quick, if you are a new patron and you joined up during Ida and you just, I want to see those cameras, where's those cameras? Don't forget, we have this amazing back-end set of tools for you on the HurricaneTrack Insider site. So log in, you use your email address that you use on Patreon, log into the HurricaneTrack Insider site. It's right off the HurricaneTrack.com homepage. It's on the right-hand side, easy to find, and take advantage of this map. It's interactive. You can change the background, all kinds of different things. You can make it dark. You can do, the physical relief, which is a neat background in and of itself. And then we have the deployment locations of our cameras on here, and so forth and so on. Watches and warnings. And then you can even, right there, pin it to your home screen of most mobile devices and tablets so that it functions like a virtual app, like a web app. So just something to keep in mind if you joined up recently. We have a lot more than just live cameras for you. So here's the tracking of Kate. There it is right there. Even this is interactive. I mean, this is really cool stuff. Thanks again, Will Woodgate, for putting this together for us. He's one of our supporters from the UK, and he built this based on my ideas, and wow. So here's Larry, and I mean, you can just click on any of these guys here, and I know there's a lot of maps that do this, but this interactivity is really, really neat. But you get the general gist here. Stop bragging for a second. My apologies, I'm proud of it. Generally out into the open Atlantic is the guidance envelope. Sometimes this ridge will fill in and get stronger, and you start to see this lean and lean and lean. Yes, that is a possibility, of course, but I don't see it this time. There's no confirmation bias there. I'm not doing the old, well, I hope it doesn't come here thing. I mean, I need a break. Everybody needs a break. But really, it's just not there this time, and I'll show you why here on the Euro from last night's run. Okay, so this is 850 millibars. It's the lower part of the atmosphere. I understand that. Here's Larry. That's what we want to watch. And here's the general shape of the ridging out here in the eastern Atlantic. There's Kate, and it's kind of eroded this down a little bit. So there's less ridging happening in this area through here. So Larry is going to start gaining some latitude fairly soon instead of just barreling straight across. So let's move this out. This is 24-hour increments. So this will be valid tonight. And Kate kind of still hanging on a little bit. There's all that energy associated with Ida over the eastern part of the U.S. and the northeast, causing all that trouble. And then 48 hours out, Larry well on its way to getting stronger. Now, this is interesting. If we didn't have Ida up here and then sort of this trailing front eroding the western part of the ridge, there would be more ridging for Larry to head more west. So you can kind of thank Ida and kind of thank Kate that these entities act as a little bit of jackhammers on this subtropical ridge, and it's just not as dominant. That's part of it. That's not everything, but that's one of the reasons. So we're going out to 72 hours. Larry is well on its way to becoming a strong hurricane. The ridge does try to build back in some, but it's just not enough. You can see and again, this is the lower levels. It's out there, and yes, it might strengthen some more. We'll see. This is 5 days out, and yes, we've seen what can happen. but I don't feel it this time. There's just not enough there yet for me to worry that this is going to come back. And you say, well, look, there it goes, and then hopefully it just fades out to sea. That's 10 days from now. Shouldn't even be showing this, right? Because so much can change. But we'll watch it. We'll see what happens. That's the general idea. Up and out across the central Atlantic. A couple things I wanted to show you here. I mentioned this yesterday, and I wanted to just make sure I wasn't seeing things. Wow. And wow. I mean, seriously. Very, very warm compared. Well, let me temper that. It's not very, very. It's warm enough. The anomalies, those are departures from average, that we're going to have a very long hurricane season. It's going to extend through October. Once again, very warm Atlantic compared to the long-term average, especially over here on the western side of the main development region. You have the warmish, is that a word? AMO look here. It's called the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation, where the northeast Atlantic is very warm. And then that right there, later on in the month of September, when we get these long trackers or late bloomers, that's going to develop big ridges over the northwest Atlantic and send those hurricanes west. I mean, that's just generally what's going to happen. Larry getting started early is probably one of the reasons, too, why it's going to head out. But you get something that blooms later and it gets trapped, comes up the East Coast, something in the Caribbean. We'll see. Going to be a long season, and this right here, the La Nina coming back on, all of the eastern Pacific through the central Pacific, cooled off in the equatorial region. Buckle up. I mean, we saw what happened with Ida. I'm just keeping it real with you folks. And then I wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing things with this. August 31st, that's yesterday. The one that I showed yesterday would be from the 30th. It's always a day behind. Yes, that bullseye still there. Ida did not plow through it and churn it up. And I guess that makes sense because the peak intensity of Ida was achieved right here in this corridor. But folks, even through here, there's not some blue, and these are not anomalies. This is upper ocean heat content. This is an actual measurement of the energy in the upper part of the Gulf here. And you don't see a little path carved through here. What the heck? I don't understand that at all. It might be the smaller wind field. I don't know. I mean, you did get some mixing over here on the east side, maybe over here as well. But bottom line is the Gulf is very, very warm. And, the upper ocean heat content is very much in play going forward. All right, so like I said earlier, if you have joined on Patreon, you log in, there's the Patreon banner. You log in right there. Take advantage of all the stuff that we've got on the Insider site. And some of you have asked me and found an old link and ordered already our T-shirts. Listen, let me just end with this. I wish everything I did was free. I really do. So millions of people could enjoy it for free. But then how do I earn a living? This is what I do for my job. And I have a right to do that, even as an entrepreneur. Yes, I invented all of this out of thin air 25 years ago. But that doesn't mean that I can't have a career doing this, right? So that being said, I still don't enjoy having to pitch stuff. It's not fun. But I do like to brag about what we've got because it's really freaking awesome. But I have to pay for it. So it's this vicious circle, that I want to show you what I'm doing, get you involved. But I want to be careful about it too because, you pitch it too much, it gets annoying. That being said, people want the T-shirt, just like the one that I'm wearing now. And you can get them. And I finally set up a page for it. And here it is. It's HurricaneTrack.com/store. And or store.html, whatever. I'll put the link in the description. They're in white, ice gray, or sports gray, pretty much any size that you want, and it's through PayPal. I'll send it to you from Custom Ink, and you can get the shirt that we've got, all right? So if you want one, that's how you do it. Connect on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You're watching on YouTube. And by the way, thanks for helping to grow the YouTube channel by several thousand subscribers. Great to have you. Don't forget to put your notifications on so that you're notified when we do a video here. And of course, I talk about it because it is just one of the most remarkable things of this era. Crowdfunding something that you believe in. That is how we do it. That grew substantially as well. And what we are going to be able to do with this going forward, we're already working on projects assembling new equipment, better ideas. It's just going to grow from here, ladies and gentlemen. And it's because of you on that side, your side of whatever device you're watching and listening to me from. I do appreciate it. I thank you very, very much for your support, your time, and your attention. I am Mark Sudduth. That's it from me here in the Houston area. Time to get back over to Louisiana and pick up our equipment and then focus on the rest of the season in front of us. And I'll post some updates along the way as best I can, and another update here on the tropics tomorrow. All right, thanks for watching. We'll do it again tomorrow.